All right, all right. Well, welcome everyone to another episode of Wellness Wednesday. I am always so excited to bring this topic to the table and bring this platform to the table because Wellness Wednesday has been something we've been doing now for about 3 years, and in it, we've been interviewing health experts, bringing them to the table, people that love health, love helping people. And we are really going to be in for a treat tonight. So before we get started, my name's Marilee Marisic, and I am a wellness advocate, and I have been in this space for about 17 years. And really what brought me here was my own health crisis. I found myself really struggling health with my health and physically, and I just couldn't get on top of it. And ironically, I had been a person that was, I thought, pretty proactive. I had been seeing a naturopath. I had been doing what I thought were all the right things, taking a lot of different supplements. And in all honesty, I was throwing supplements just because, I don't know, I saw a commercial because something might be really good to take. And somebody else wrote an article. So I would throw that at it. And I still was struggling. And I'd had an injury that really left me stranded with a lot of inflammation in my body. And I was dealing with a lot of different, I would say, the headaches, the kind of headaches where you have to put sunglasses on and be in a dark room. I struggle with those almost on a daily basis, and they ran in my family. So I just thought it was something that I would live with. And so, lo and behold, I came across this wonderful concept of activation, and it literally has changed my world. And so I can just tell you, being your own best advocate and digging in and learning, knowledge is power. And we want to bring that to the table tonight for you guys. And really, we love this conversation. And something, if you've joined Wellness Wednesday before, that you've heard us say, in order to get well, fix the cell. In order to be well, fix the cell. In order to age well, fix the cell. Everything goes back to a root cause. And so we love kind of digging deeper and teaching you and bringing you along the journey. And I learned something new every single time. So this week, we're going to be talking about supplementation versus activation. And I've been really excited to bring this topic to the table. And I reached out to one of our good friends, Dr. Dondi Nettles, who is honestly one of the best people to bring to this topic. He's not only one of the most brilliant people that I've met in this health and wellness space, he's so knowledgeable, but he has quite a background and a story to this as well. And so I'm excited to bring him here tonight. And I don't want to miss anything about his story, just a little bit about his bio. Let me read it because I just never want to miss any of this good stuff. But Dr. Dondi, I know he's on here, and he just said it's very hot in Arizona. So that's where he's from. But Dr. Dondi Nettles is a wellness professional and chiropractor who owned the fourth largest solo chiropractic practice in Arizona, seeing 350 to 500 patients per week. That's insane. That's a huge amount of people. But that means he's been a hands-on and still is a hands-on guy helping people be better. And I love that so much. But he's also a podcaster, an AM radio talk show host. And honestly, I know he's also a husband and a great dad, and honestly, just one of the nicest guys I know. He's an all-around great guy. And so it's awesome to have him here tonight and really talk about this topic, supplementation versus activation. And I know you guys are going to learn a lot. So before we get started and just asking Dondi some questions, Dr. Dondi, I wanted to ask you, I know there's more to the story. So if you would share more to your story, and specifically, how did you first learn about activation?
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity, Marilee. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, most people will not understand this, and I didn't really understand activation until probably 2 years into working with this company. Because when I found out about our flagship product, Protandim, and it was just called Protandim at the time, it was the only product our company had, we weren't talking about NRF2 activation, and we weren't talking about activation. We were talking about reducing oxidative stress, because we knew that's what the product did. And we really knew what it did before we knew why. And once they discovered that it was the activation of this NRF2 pathway, and I think they probably knew that prior to, they just didn't want to make it too complex, because talking about oxidative stress for brand new people was hard enough. and then adding into and how does it lower oxidative stress, and then talking about activation on top of that. It was just a complex conversation that eventually got worked into it once we figured out how to describe it. But it was something I didn't know, and I had the luxury of having it explained to me by Dr. Joe McCord, who was the actual founder and formulator of this product. And it wasn't because I was inquiring, it was because I was being rather sarcastic. In fact, I didn't want to be part of this company. I didn't want to rep these products, and so I called him Joe, and kind of disrespectfully, as funny as it is. And I said, okay, Joe, if this product is so good, why is it in a caplet? And he just got super parental on me, but in a he put his arm around me and he said, son, let me explain this to you. And he talked to me about the difference between activation and supplementation. And he used lights as an example. And it was perfect for me because I love to teach with analogies and I like to use metaphors. And we were at the Hilton Garden Inn in Salt Lake City, Utah. And he pointed over to the breakfast nook and he said, you see that orange light where all the plates are that are keeping the food warm? And I said, yeah. He goes, that is based on supplementation. That's a rheostat. If there's a little plate, a few plates up there, they'll turn that down to lower the heat. But if that countertop is full of plates, they'll turn the heat up. So less is, you have less is more. He said, so sometimes with supplementation, if you're deficient in something, and the whole key here with supplementation is deficiency, you can take a little bit, but if you're really deficient, you need to take a lot. That's supplementation. And I was like, okay, I get that. But I was thinking in my head, that's not the question I asked you. And he looked over at the other side and he said, you see that fluorescent light over there? I said, yeah. He said, that is activation. That light is either on or it's off. And when it's off, it can't be more off. And when it's on, it can't be more on. It's all or nothing. So the reason why our product is in a caplet is because that's all it has to be to activate the pathway, and the body creates the benefit because you can take antioxidants or you can make them. And when you make the antioxidants, they're 1,000,000 times stronger. And he says, and here's the key benefit of activation over supplementation. If you're deficient and you don't take enough, you still have the problem. If you're deficient and you take too much, you may be causing a problem. He goes, but when it's activation, your body always does the right amount at the right need at the right time. And so it's a much more efficient pathway, and it's a much more reliable pathway. And that's when I really got it. But that was about 2 years into working with these products and recommending them to many people. So I didn't understand it right away. And we weren't even having that conversation right away.
Amazing. And honestly, it's quite the concept to try to wrap your head around. And, something I shared this with you, Dondine. I want to share it with the audience because it's something that just happened to me and in little bit of the journey of activation. And that is, I just had some blood work done that they tested 161 biomarkers. So this was functional medicine approach, and they were testing everything from inflammatory markers to pancreas to, I mean, honestly, it was everything: liver enzymes, micronutrients, the whole meal deal. And what I was so surprised in finding out, so I shared my story at the beginning, like I was throwing supplements, like you just talked about different supplement and activation. Well, I wasn't feeling well or doing well when I first came across activation, but I was doing what I thought was the right thing. So fast forward now, 8.5 years later, this is the first time that I've had that done. And over time, as I've been layering these activators, I can tell you, like, I just feel better and better. The longer I take it, the better it gets. And I've joked and said, I'm in my mid 50s and I feel better than I did in my 30s. Well, as of yesterday, I have proof of that. When the results came back from the blood work, my chronological age is 55. My biological age was 16.8 years younger. Oh my goodness. And so literally turning back the clock, and we've talked about that, turning back the clock. So I'm so excited that we're talking about this tonight. So Dondi, I love that analogy, and I didn't know that you actually got to meet Dr. Joe McCord. So that's amazing. But let's dive into just this whole concept. So how or why did supplements even come to be?
Great question. And really out of necessity, because back about between 60, 70 years ago, the nutrient density of the fruits and vegetables that we eat have significantly declined. And it's because there's several reasons. The first one is factory farming, because they went from putting corn stalks 14 inches apart to 3 inches apart to maximize the yield. And that was just seed placement, but there's also genetic modification, there's growth enhancers, there's pesticide residue, there's herbicides, there's fungicides, and all of these things, because what happened is that natural farming was replaced by chemical farming as it became more profitable. And it was about high yield. How can they get the quickest, biggest vegetables to market the fastest and in bulk? Well, the downside of that is now 60, 70 years later, we have the most overfed and undernourished population that we've ever had on planet Earth, because we're eating a lot more, but the nutrients are less, they're less dense. And so out of necessity, supplementations came to be, whether it's a micronutrient, whether it's a vitamin, a mineral, we're just not getting them in the foods that we eat. Also because of soil depletion. Like here in Arizona, we have good weather 12 months out of the year. And they use the same plot of land to grow something different every 3 months. And so the land never rests. There's no dormant season. There's no replenishing season. They just add more chemical fertilizers and pesticides and growth hormones and all of these things. And we wonder why we have this problem. We have a lot of agriculture here because of the climate, but we're not letting the ground rest. We're not letting Mother Nature take its course. And when something just goes full tilt all the time, you have to bolster it with something. And that's how supplements actually came to be, out of necessity.
Out of necessity. That's amazing. Well, so on the flip side of that, how did activation come to be?
Well, it wasn't out of necessity. I would say it's out of altruism, because back in 2003, they concluded, or the global Human Genome Project was completed. It started in 1993, and 10 years later, a massive team of international scientists looking at mapping the entire human genome. If you can imagine the DNA like links of a chain, they looked at every single link, every single connection, every single switch, what it did, what it didn't do, how to turn it on, how to turn it off, and how it relates to human health. So that project was completed in 2003. I think it was pretty interesting because also in 2003, Protandem NRF2 Synergizer was released. Our very first activator came out the exact same year. Well, there's been ever since that Human Genome Project was released, and we knew now what we know about the DNA strain, the race has literally been on to capitalize on it from a profit standpoint. So I think altruism is what brought it out, intending to extend life and do it for good reasons to increase longevity for generations. But there's also the capitalistic side. There's also the profiteering side. There's also people that are doing things for profit. And I created some slides. I'm not sure if we'll be able to get into them, but I want to, because there are some people that are focusing on activation, not on the nutraceutical side, on the pharmaceutical side, because of the profit potential that's there.
Wow. Honestly, well, follow the dollar. It just, that's a whole rabbit trail we can go down, but I love the natural approach. I love the concept that you can actually activate your body to make your body always wants to heal. And we talk about that on here. Our bodies are smart. They're divinely developed and created, and they want to heal all the time. So activating processes that can do that is really an incredible thing. But okay, so with all of that you just said, do activators take the place of supplements?
No, it's a misperception though, because when we have, and let me kind of just describe what activators do. We have natural pathways in our body that create, and as you said, our body's natural quest and natural desire is to be something called homeostasis. It's balance, where there's no stress, there's no healing. Under normal circumstances, unless we're injured, the body's natural tendency is always to be balanced and as efficient as possible. And it's our genetic and our innate design. We just have to stop messing it up. And we get into epigenetic situations where we live in toxic environments with high voltage power lines, with Wi-Fi, with 5G, and all pesticide residues and all of these things. They cause genetic problems in our bodies, and our bodies have the antidote. It's called activation. So if the body, here's the caveat though. If the body can perceive it has a problem, it can remedy the problem so long as it perceives it accurately and it has the energy to complete the cycle. And both of those things, interestingly enough, are attached to activation cycles. So the body's perception, the communication, NAD. That's where NAD comes from. It's a big buzzword right now in health and wellness. And so is mitochondria. We rely on our cells to do their job. They were created for a job. Sometimes when they can't complete their job, it's not our fault. It's not their fault. It's they ran out of mitochondria. That's part of the aging process. But with activation, we can return that mitochondria production back to its youthful vigor the way we did when we were growing. And that's the key thing, Marilee, is that the human life cycle has two phases, the growing phase and the aging phase. Nothing ever dies under normal circumstances in the growing phase. It only dies in the aging phase because it's more susceptible to the things as our cells get less and less efficient and less able to to perceive their own challenges and therefore remedy them. That doesn't happen in our youth. So when we can activate these pathways in a natural herbal way that is not manipulating them, in other words, and the body's always, what a side effect is the body's objection to being manipulated. When there's no side effects because we're not manipulating it, we are creating efficiency where inefficiency has taken over. It's amazing what we see. So activation is the next frontier of health and wellness and longevity because it's our body's natural process. It already knows what to do. It's just lost the efficiency. We get to be able to return it back. And that's with it through natural means. And that's the amazingness of this process.
I couldn't agree with you more. And honestly, I just feel like it's like the best kept secret. And it's something I know a lot of us feel like we just got to shout it from the mountaintops. Once you know, you know. Once you know better, you do better, right? So let me ask you this. If activation is so powerful and revolutionary, why do so few people know about it?
Because there's not enough people talking about it. It's one of those things, and it's really a progression of science. And so what they call the scientific method is when scientists and researchers come up with an idea. And they'll say, well, can we do this? And then they'll do a little research and they'll turn that question into a hypothesis, is what the scientific term is. Then they take that hypothesis and they put it to study. They create a pilot study to say, well, let's see if it works. If it works and that pilot study works out, then it goes into a larger study. If that larger study works out, it goes to peer review. If peer review gives it the thumbs up, it goes to publication in medical journals. And if it goes to publication in medical journals, and they keep in mind that's six steps of a 9-step process. So most people, and then the 7th step is when it gets published in medical journals, doctors read those medical journals. The 8th step is if it shows promise, they implement that strategy with their patients. And the 9th step is when it comes to us. Those patients tell their friends and family. Most people don't know about activation because it's still right now in between steps 3 and 5. Some people are having hypothesis. Some of them are doing studies. Some of them are going through peer review. And there's some that are being studied or being published, but not enough to change or to pivot or move the arrow. It's not a conversation. Plus, if you just think about the word activation, most people, if they hear that word, they don't apply it to health and wellness. They're like, maybe what? Turn on a phone, turn on a computer, turn on the Xbox. What am I talking? Activating what? Now, supplements, we already know it's health and wellness. It's taking the place of something. Activation, we don't have that common knowledge yet. That's why we don't have enough people talking about it, because there's not enough research. There's not enough things happening. But the key is we are the only activation company right now. We are a very big fish, or a very small fish rather, in a very blue ocean, very large blue ocean. When we have more companies doing what we're doing, and we have when there are some pharmaceuticals that we do or that actually do activation, people are going to naturally look for natural alternatives to those pharmaceuticals, and it's going to lead them to our door. But the key is the reason why it is powerful, it's revolutionary. It literally is the next wave of human wellness and longevity. But the reason people aren't talking about it because they literally don't know the intricacies of it and how simplistic it is, because they're still caught up in the supplement. Only 58% of people take supplements. If everybody knew what supplements did, 100% of people would. And probably less than 2% of people are activated. But if everybody knew what it was, 100% of people would be activated, probably more than supplements. But they don't take the place. It's a very different strategy. But here they are interdependent, because activators are dependent on sufficiency. If we are deficient in something, we need supplements to raise the sufficiency so that our activators work better. So activators do not replace supplements, and supplements do not replace activators. They are dependent on one another when used correctly.
That's amazing. And you threw some numbers out there. I didn't realize, I literally thought maybe you were going to say like 80 to 90% of people were taking supplements, and activation much higher than that. That's incredible. Well, I know when I first discovered LifeVantage and just learned about activation, it was an ABC primetime report that my jaw was on the floor. If you haven't
Right?
seen the ABC primetime report, get back to the person that invited you here and make sure that you see it. When I saw that, my jaw was on the floor. And I think at the time, Dr. Dondi, I was literally, there were like 16 published peer-reviewed studies on the Protandim NRF2. And now we have how many published peer-reviewed studies?
28 on PubMed and 31 total.
That's incredible. That's
It's
not that much
31,
time that's passed for
right?
that. And that's unheard of, isn't it? Because we know that a lot of companies will have products that have ingredients that they say are peer reviewed, but to have a finished branded product, completely finished branded product, and have that many peer reviewed studies is unprecedented. So it's one that we get very excited about sharing. But let me ask you this. So, what is the future of activation, and how is LifeVantage positioned to capitalize on it?
Mhm. Well, the future, it's literally the next wave, because what we know, and this stems from what scientists and researchers learned with the Human Genome Project, when you can maximize the efficiency of the DNA, you can extend life. And there's books, there's crazy books published about it. And actually, one of the first ones I ever read, I read this book called Never Be Sick Again in 2002. And it talked about, it literally just blew my mind wide open, because it talked about there's only one cause of disease. All disease has one cause, and it's cellular malfunction. When cells stop functioning, disease sets in. And the simplicity that I was talking about, there's only two causes of cellular malfunction. There's toxicity. In other words, the cells are being poisoned by something, internally, externally, or both. And as a result, they're not functioning properly. They start to malfunction, and we give it a diagnosis. The only other option is deficiency. The cells need something they're lacking. Because they don't have it, they start to malfunction. If left long enough, we call it a diagnosis. So the simplicity of that, well, that was my big aha moment, knowing I can change the sufficiency or the deficiency to become closer to sufficiency. That's what supplements are for. But the toxicity part, I can also be less toxic. I can make choices on what I eat or don't eat, preservatives, and eat whole, raw food when given the option. Most people don't do that. It's why we're so overfed and undernourished. But there's books like The Longevity Code, another book that talks about these things and talks about activation. It doesn't use the word, but it talks about cell signaling. It talks about cell programming and changing DNA. And so, I mean, there's crazy amounts of books out there that talk directly to this. So they're really hitting all around the topic of activation without saying the word. And so we know what it does. We know how to do these things, and we now know we know how to do them with herbs and with natural ingredients, and they haven't figured out yet how to do it with pharmaceuticals and synthetic ingredients. But to the long answer to the question, why is this the next frontier, and how are we positioned? Because I'm just going to mention a couple names. Jeff Bezos, the guy who started Amazon, arguably he trades back and forth between Elon Musk and a couple others as the richest guy in the world because he invests properly. So he started a company called Altos Labs 2.5 years ago, Altos, ALTOS labs.com. Check it out. Look it up. Look what they're trying to do. They're trying to revitalize medicine by activating drugs that change the DNA to make the person more receptive to the gene altering drugs. That's their entire focus. Why? Because it's profitable. Why does Jeff Bezos do anything? And then 11 years ago, a company called Calico Labs, CALICO labs.com, which was started by the founders of Google, the founders of Apple, and the founders of Genentech. Why would the largest technology company, the largest information gathering company, and the largest genetics company team up on something? Because what were they trying to do? They're trying to change drugs that alter DNA to make them more receptive to people for profit. And so when they come up with a drug, and I know they will, it will create an instant international buzz on what is a natural alternative to that, because we're tired of side effects. And because right now we're the only company in the natural activation space that's going to lead us right here. But we need more, we need more companies, we need more people, we need more understanding of activation to literally tip the scales into the next wave of health and wellness. Jeff Bezos knows about it. Apple, Google, and Genentech founders know about it. Bill Gates knows about it. So when lay people know about it, it's going to change everything. Because when we have 3D printers printing meat and we're grinding crickets for protein substitutes, and Bill Gates is the largest farmland owner in the United States. Not because he has altruistic reasons, though he may think he does. It's about profit. And I'm not disparaging Bill Gates. He's a capitalist. But why is he doing these things? Because he knows the power of activation, but he's looking at the pharmaceutical side of it. When we can honor the natural side of it, and honor our innate intelligence to know that it's always trying to do its job and will always do its job, that's the next frontier. We are literally right now, we are raising the next generation of people. And I'm going to talk about the 3 activators that we have. The NRF2 lowers oxidative stress. NRF1 increases mitochondria function. And NAD increases cellular communication and overall vitality. So let's just put it in a practical sense. Maybe this is a person. You talked about the layered effect of activation. If you have a person that has less stress, well, oxidative stress, maybe not everybody knows about, but everybody understands stress. A person with less stress is a better husband, a better wife, a better neighbor, a better son, a better mother. There's no arguing. But that person, what if they had less stress and they had more energy? Now they're even better. They can do more things. They can be more active. They can, they can set more goals. What if that person has less stress, they're more active, and they communicate better with those around them? They're more efficient in the time usage. Now you've created somebody that's kind of a superhuman. Interestingly enough, there's a book called Superhuman by Dave Asprey, the guy who founded Bulletproof, all about activation, though he never says the word, but he says all 3 of those pathways I just mentioned to you. So if you can, but let's say you give somebody less stress, but they still have no energy and they can't communicate and they're not efficient. They're better off than before. Or what if it was just you give them more energy, but they still have stress and they still can't communicate and they're still inefficient? They're better off than before. Or what if they communicate better and they have more efficiency, but they still have no energy and they're still under stress? What if you layer all 3? And that's what we're doing with our cells. When our cells have less stress, they do a better job. When they have more energy, they do a better job. How do we know if there's lack of energy? We wake up tired after 8 hours sleep, and the first thing we go for is coffee. I think it's pretty interesting that the number one drink that people, other than water, is coffee. And the number one time of day they use it is in the morning. It's like, wait a second, you just woke up. You should be refreshed and reinvigorated. Why are you can't, I can't function without my coffee. That's a sign that your mitochondria need a little help. That's what our product does. Or if somebody says, they walk into a room, what did I come in here for? They have brain fog. They forget things or short-term memory loss. These are all signs of cellular inefficiency because the activation pathways are no longer efficient. When we can layer those, increased stress reduction, better energy, and better communication and better efficiency, we've just created the trifecta of human DNA potential. And then we have another activator we haven't even talked about. It's called collagen. Every single protein we have 20,000 proteins in our body. The one that we depend on the most and that's the most prevalent is collagen. People know about collagen, but they know about it from a hair, skin, and nails perspective, from a beauty or vanity. And I don't mean to be crass, but if you're taking something and you see the benefits on the outside, what's happening on the inside? And this is the interesting thing. That's with the product that I'm talking about. Most people that buy a collagen product, the product they buy does not tell them to take before and after pictures because they're probably not expecting there to be any difference. But ours does, and that's an activation. So when you can and what does collagen control? What does collagen influence? The bones, the muscles, the nerves, the tendons, the ligaments, and the cartilage. In other words, all your joints. One of the most common reasons why people go to doctors in the aging process is because of joint pain and joint stiffness and joint soreness. When we can remedy all of those things by addressing it at the cause, we've just activated an entire generation of people such that I can tell you right now, we are raising the first generation of human beings that will never have to endure high levels of oxidative stress. They will never have to endure low levels of mitochondria function. They will never have to endure low levels of NAD, and they will never have to endure low levels of collagen unless they choose to. And that's the thing. Once they know, they will voluntarily do it. They will walk through walls to get to our products. The problem is they don't know about them. They don't know about activation because not enough people are talking about it. It is the best kept secret in the history of human health and wellness, literally. And it's working on the DNA level, and it works 100% of the time and it works differently in every person because your body prioritizes its own need. You may have headaches, you may have back pain, and you may have confusion or brain fog, and you take a product and say, well, my brain fog didn't go away. Your body is prioritizing where its needs are. Once it has enough energy, it's going to start going in sequential order based on your need, and it doesn't ask your permission. And just because it doesn't go in the order you want it to doesn't mean it's not working, because the body, so long as, how do you know? Check your wrist. If you have a pulse, it's working. If you can hear my voice, it's working. Trust in it. That's the point.
That is incredible. I have so many notes from this last little segment. Oh my goodness. I love that you talked about the fact that it goes to work where it needs to go first, because that happens a lot of times. People are like, I'm taking it and I think it's going to be like an aspirin, or an Advil. I take something and I have a pain or an ache or my joints hurt, and they start activating and they're expecting an immediate response. Can you talk about that just a second? I mean, just like that compounding effect makes a difference. Is there anything you can expound on that piece of it?
Yeah. So if you're looking again at that layered approach, and so what is oxidative stress and why do we have it? Because every time we take a breath, we're breathing oxygen. So when you cut open an apple, if you're making an apple pie and you go out of the room, you get distracted and you come back and the apple pieces start to brown, that's because the oxygen in the air is attacking and degrading the flesh of the apple. What happens every time we take a breath, but our body fights back the way an apple can't. It just loses that efficiency. And so if we have oxidative damage that our body's trying to repair, we have energy deficit that our body's trying to repair, and we have cellular inefficiency and it's the cells aren't communicating properly and the body's trying to repair. It literally takes a hierarchy of importance. And maybe our joints are sore, our muscles are lax. We're just not getting, we don't have the muscle tension and muscle strength we used to. When we become activated in all of those pathways, the body's innate wisdom prioritizes your need. And so it may be different in different order, and it may be sometimes you have to be able to get. So again, back to the two causes of cellular malfunction: toxicity and deficiency. You may have to become more sufficient and less toxic before your body starts to do anything. And that is part of the detox system, part of the mitochondria improvement, part of the NAD improvement, and part of the lowering oxidative stress. All three of those kick in the detox. Now, sometimes detox is not fun, but sometimes it takes a while, because the longer we've been toxic, the longer it's going to take to become less toxic. And as we get less toxic, the body's priority of healing will go into place. Sometimes it takes weeks for the healing to start. And it just depends on one, priority of need, how toxic or deficient you are to begin with. And everybody starts at a different place, which is why someone's expectations and experience may not be chances are will not be someone else's, because they have a different priority level of healing and detox first, and the body has its own hierarchy of importance, even if all four of those activators are happening at the exact same time. Sometimes, and it starts with this: the less health-related or aging-related issues you begin with, the quicker it's all going to happen. The more signs of aging and the more challenges you're dealing with on a health side, the longer it's going to take. But it will always, always, always show up and do its job. You just have to be patient, because you didn't get sick overnight. And you talked about healing the cell. That's the key to longevity and healing and wellness. You didn't get sick overnight. You're not going to get well overnight. And you earn sickness. You earn sickness and you gain back wellness, your body's natural state. If you're ill, it's because you earned it. And usually it's going to be lifestyle related, not genetics. It's less than 5% are genetics. It is epigenetics. 95% lifestyle is why we have our problems. And that is increasing as we have more reasons to have problems and more opportunities to have problems. People just seem like they're lining up to take advantage of them, which we shouldn't be. And the more educated we are, the less we will do that.
Oh my goodness. I concur with somebody in here that said, I wish we could download your brain into ours, because this is so valuable. Oh, this conversation could go on and on all night. And I know in Wellness Wednesday, it's about 2 months ago, we had a topic that we talked about the evolution of activation. And really it all started. You shared in the very beginning. It was the Nerf 2. Then
Yeah.
along came the Proteanum Nerf 1. You talked about that from the mitochondrial repair. Then along came the NAD when it comes to the Proteanum products of families. And that happens to be something I take every single day, won't miss a day. And the interesting piece of that is as I was layering, and I'm sure you experienced the same thing, as I was layering, everything just got better and better and better over time. And what I think it's worth saying and sharing on this is all of the products that LifeVantage is creating are meant to complement one another. They're meant to build upon one another. And even the supplements that we do have, the AM, PM, are meant to do that. And when if I'm understanding what you said earlier, when everything is supplemented and balanced enough, it's going to make the activators work better. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
What they have that's the whole key with synergy. And with synergy, just looking at the tri-synergizer, people in a simple math equation is 1 + 1 + 1 = 3. But with synergy, it's 1 + 1 + 1 = 30 because they all make each other more effective. When you have something that provides more energy and there's less stress in the application of more energy, you're going to get more. And they all work with each other and they all complement each other. And then when you throw on that fourth activator, the collagen, it's just, I don't know. So I don't know what it's like when you take a trifecta and you add one. Trifecta plus one. I don't know if there's another word for that. Quadrifecta, maybe. But they are all synergistic and they're all complementary. And that's why we have supplements. And the supplements that we have, they're based on something called time-wise nutrient delivery, meaning the right amounts at the right time for the right reasons or the right time of day. And so we get the benefit we're looking for, because if you have cells that are lacking something, whether they're activated or not, they're not going to be optimal. When they're sufficient and activated, you can't get better than that. And that's why supplements and activators are literally, they're codependent on each other, but they don't replace each other. And so if somebody's taking a supplement for vitamin D as an example, or they're taking a supplement for glutathione, your body makes its own vitamin D. Just enable it to do so. Your body makes its own glutathione. Enable it to do so. You can take it, but if you're taking it, you may not take enough, meaning you may still have the problem or the symptoms of it. And if you take too much, you may create a problem, even though you're sufficient now from a supplement standpoint. But when your body activates and your body's creating the solution, it's never wrong under normal circumstances. And people say, well, what about autoimmune disorders? That's not normal. That's an error in the immune system, often caused by lack of activation. When cells are working more efficiently, they have enough energy and they communicate and they're more efficient, you don't have immune issues, because we have an immune system that equips us to live long lives. We're not meant to die of a disease. We're meant to die of natural causes. In other words, you go to sleep and you just don't wake up. Back in the 1970s, 30% of people died of disease, 70% of natural causes. In just the last 50 years, that switched. 70% of people die of disease now and only 30% of natural causes. Our genetics have not changed. Our lifestyles have changed, and our overfeeding and under nutrients is what changed. And we have to get back to healing the cell. Fast food does not heal the cell. It stresses the cell. It creates its own stress. And then we live in this compound effect of creating more stress, and we wonder why we are degrading. This is the interesting thing. We have more medical breakthroughs every year, yet we're getting sicker and sicker, younger and younger. They're very paradoxical, because we're not looking at the cell, we're looking at the symptom. Symptoms make you feel better, cells make you better. And when do you want to feel better or be better? You can't be better by less symptoms. You just feel better, and you will never solve a problem by minimizing symptoms. You'll just trick somebody into thinking they're okay when actually they're less okay than they were when they had the symptoms, because now they're not paying attention to what their body's trying to tell them anymore. It's this crazy situation. When we listen to our body, our bodies aren't stupid. The symptoms they're trying to say, hey, McFly, there's a problem. Let's fix the problem. We look at it as inconvenience. What can I take to take this symptom away and then go live about my life a little and more haphazardly and recklessly than I was before? And we wonder why we have a downward spiral. There's the answer right there. It's so simple.
It really is. It really is. And you, oh my goodness, there's so much in what you just said. I could just unpackage this all evening. I have to ask this question because I've been wanting to ask this on a Wellness Wednesday. You talked about, I mean, this is supplementation versus activation conversation. One of the trending things right now is people are going to these wellness clinics and getting infusions with like glutathione. What's the difference of our, say, protandim NRF2? We talked about glutathione, making your own glutathione. Can you explain that concept? Because I am asked that often, and I'd love for you to hear what your take is on that.
Absolutely. So you can take things like whether it's glutathione, whether it's the Myers cocktail, if you're, in cold and flu season, or it's NAD, if you want to have, more cellular resiliency. And those are all great, but they're a supplemental approach. In other words, your body will eventually use what you just gave it, and now you're back to the deficiency state again. So it's going to have a temporary benefit, but you're going to go right back to the way you were before. And that's one of the downfalls or the cons of supplements. If you get it right, so most people don't get it right, but with activation, it never goes back. Your body knows that, perceives the need, remedies the need, and continues to do so when you continue to activate the pathway. So you can take a supplement every day and have good days and bad days, or you can take an activator every day and have all good days, because your body always knows its priority of need, and it always remedies it when the body creates its own. So when you can take glutathione in an intravenous way, or you can take one of those caplets of protandim, and your body will make 300% more of its own. And here's the thing, whether it's synthetic or natural, when you take it from the outside in, your body will sometimes have a reaction to it. When your body makes it for itself, it never has a reaction to its own remedy, unless there's an autoimmune disorder, and that's not normal. That's usually caused by cellular stress, which activation can help. So it's just back to the common sense logic. Trust your body or trust the outward intervention. If we trust our body, we can never go wrong. It's when we question our body. We've been led to believe that we have genetic problems because we have genetic problems. Well, if that were true, we would have died out a long time ago. If, there used to be questionnaires on when you go to a doctor, how many people in your family have cancer or these things. I said, well, my mom had cancer, my sister has cancer, my aunt had cancer, my grandma had cancer, then maybe I'm going to have cancer. Not unless you do the same things that gave them cancer. There's a way to break the cycle. It's don't do what the people that did before you that earned that diagnosis. And it has a lot to do with lifestyle. It has 95% of it with lifestyle. And that's the thing that people need to wrap their minds around. And it's not distrusting doctors. Let me be absolutely clear on that. We have the most advanced, scientifically absolute best medical system in the world, without exception, with no argument here in the United States. We have the best doctors, the best researchers, the best field hospitals, the best teaching facilities, the best prescriptions, the best trained, the best of the best. No argument. But you on the sharp end of a scalpel or the prescription pad, wellness does not come from that. Less symptoms comes from that. Wellness only comes from honoring our body. And that means spending less time in the doctor's office, because we don't need to go to a doctor unless we're ill. And if we're well, wellness and illness do not coexist. They don't play well in the sandbox together. They're opposites. And so just because you have a symptom doesn't mean you're ill, but you're heading there. And so that's the thing. Where does health comes from? When the body is able, and I look at it this way, from a person perspective, when you can educate someone, you can equip them, and you can empower them to be their own health advocate, you just created somebody who's going to be well for life, because they're empowered to be well rather than relying on someone else's school smarts. And I'm not disparaging that at all. But you don't go to a doctor to ask, how can I be well? If you just say, you ran a marathon, you did really good, you're eating fruits and vegetables that are organic every day, and you feel like $1 million bucks. Like you said, your aging, or your cells are 16 years younger than your biological age, and you go tell your doctor about it, they're going to go, okay, Marilee, why are you here? There's nothing I can give you on a prescription pad or with the sharp end of a scalpel. I'm sorry, you're not my patient, because you're in the wrong place. That's what we need to understand. We don't get well. We just have less symptoms, and that's not well.
I could not love this conversation more. And I know the chat is blowing up. I want to hear from you. This is my favorite question as we wrap this up. I love to ask the experts, the health professionals, what are your absolute must-have products? I know that I have a protocol that I follow every day. once I discovered activation, it's like bring it on. And I know that you can layer everything. So that's pretty much my protocol. But what are your absolute must-haves? If someone was to ask you, like, what do I start with and what do I absolutely need to have? What do I build to? Can you answer that?
Great
And what
question.
are your must-haves?
Yeah, I would say if they're north of 25, this is going to be my absolute must. It's going to be the Protandim NRF2 and the True Science Liquid Collagen combination. Because again, it's back to the aging phase and the growing phase. We never die while we're growing. We only die while we're aging. And what does that look like? Every year after the age of 30, we lose 1 to 2% of our natural collagen production. And so why wait until we're deficient in it to start activating our body's ability to make it again by 100%? So absolute bare minimum, this combination of products. I would layer the other two activators, the NRF1, which gives more mitochondria, more cellular energy, so the cells can complete the job they're trying to do anyway. And then add on top of that, NAD. I would say if I have a favorite product, it's NAD because it does so much. And I mean, that's not taking anything away from any of the other activators, but the potential of NAD, it literally helps our DNA repair. It helps mitochondria be more efficient. It helps the cells called senescent cells, which are literally zombie cells, be less likely to happen. And so it just focuses on everything about it cleans up our cells. It makes our cells communicate better with each other. It's kind of like take out the trash, make the cell, all the little parts of the cells communicate better with each other. So if your skin cells talking to your blood cell and the blood cells talking to your bone cell and the bone cells talking to your brain cell, and they all know what they're talking about, it's not gibberish, they're all going to work well. But most of the time, cellular chaos or cellular lack of communication is when our body starts to break down. NAD spearheads that and makes it all efficient. So again, the two NRF2 and collagen, bare minimum. I'd add on NRF1 and NAD on top of that. And then anything else that the company comes out with activators, and I know I can't say specifics, but we are working on some. I'm part of the scientific advisory board, and I can tell you that with a surety. We will be coming out with more activators moving forward, because the body has other pathways that we need to figure out how to optimize. And that's the key. Optimizing a normal biological pathway in the aging process is the key to longevity. And we're doing that in 4 pathways right now, and there will soon be more.
Incredible. See why we get so excited about this, you guys? There's
Yes.
so much here. And it is literally, activation is key. It has literally changed my world. It's changed your world. And I know that there are countless stories behind what we're sharing here. And all I can tell people is if I could download my brain in the stories that I've witnessed, not only from family, friends, but, people that we've shared this with, it would blow your mind at just the stuff that we see happen. And the longer, I can't emphasize that enough. The longer that you take it, the better it gets, the better the body gets. And my goodness, my blood work kind of blew my mind and just improved to that. So Dr. Dondi, this has been an unbelievable and much needed Wellness Wednesday topic. And I know, will you join us again soon to keep covering more topics? We would love to have you
Absolutely.
back. Oh, I love this. And you guys, we've talked about a lot. We've talked about Protandim Nerve 1, Protandim Nerve 2, NAD, the collagen. I know we've got our AM PM. I mentioned that as our micronutrients. We also have a brain food that's activated, a liquid brain food called Axia. We have an activated skincare line and hair care line. There's so much goodness here. It's amazing. So we just encourage you to please get back to the person that invited you to watch this. And we'll continue bringing every Wellness Wednesday more information so that you are armed, as Dr. Dondi shared. Be knowledgeable, be your own best health advocate, and know that you have your hands on something really incredible. So Dr. Dondi Nettles, thank you very much for your time tonight. And we just appreciate you so much and all that you bring. Thank you for being a part of the Science Advisory Board. I know that's a lot that you bring there too. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts for being here. And to every one of you that joined us tonight, thank you. God bless. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank you so much. It was an honor. God bless everybody.